The night, much like most summer nights in South Carolina, was warm and humid. The cicadas and crickets droned on with their monotonous tune, and frogs occasionally joined in with a ribbit or two. This night in particular, Molly had joined her friend Katie at her house for a sleepover. Something notable of her house is that it was shrouded in a dense wood and was only accompanied by a few houses a mile or so down the road. Katie's room was a different breed of eerie at night. She had 4 large windows in her room, 2 behind the bed and 2 to the side. And her mother, not being afraid of creeps since they lived on 6 acres of forest, always left the blinds open. They sat on Katie's bed, rich with energy but fused with boredom, trying to think of how they'd continue the night. Molly looked around the dimly lit room and stared out the windows into the vast darkness. She pleaded and begged with Katie to let her tell scary stories. Katie was not a fan of scary things, which was fair, as they were both only 12 years old. But Molly found excitement and entertainment in scary things, and with an annoyingly large amount of begging, she convinced Katie to let her fill the dull night with some terror. Molly told her many creepy stories that night, some of aliens, some of kidnappers, but the most memorable of all was the story of a troubled young boy. It went like this. The boy had been having trouble sleeping due to psychosis, and so would sit in his living room all night watching TV. One night, he saw, radiated by the moonlight, a faceless old man dancing around in what looked like a robe made of skin. But before Molly could detail the fate of the boy, a loud bang came from the window behind Molly. The sound, which resembled that of an aggressive knock, shook them both to the core as they yanked the covers over their heads, too afraid to confront the source. They sat, shaking in silence for what seemed like an eternity, before Molly peeked out to find nothing at the window. She whispered to Katie, "I don't see anything, but we need to shut these blinds now." Katie quietly dropped to the ground and Molly soon followed. They hid underneath the windows facing her bed, and Katie, hiding her arm from the window, quickly snatched the tilt wand of the blinds and shut them, all in one instantaneous action. Molly, who was at the base of the windows where the knock had come from, reached up to close the blinds. But before she did, her curiosity got the better of her. She lifted her head, looked out, and saw the most terrifying thing she had ever encountered. A large man was standing outside, staring straight at them, a man whose face was covered with a dead skin mask. Unable to move, Molly stared straight ahead. She shook herself out of her transfixed state and yanked at the tilt wand, shutting the blinds before ducking back underneath the window. She explained to Katie what she had seen in a quivering voice, and she began to cry. Katie, not wanting to make her parents mad, as they were forbidden to be up this late, decided not to alert them. They didn't sleep at all that night. Instead, they sat up in bed with the lights on, reading the Bible. The next morning at breakfast, it appeared Katie's dad could sense something was not quite right. He asked what was up, and they felt they had to tell him. They came clean about staying up late and what they had seen. As any concerned parent would, Katie's father checked the outside near her window, but found no trace of a person being there. No belongings, no footprints. There was nothing. And the weirdest thing was that Katie's room was on the 2nd story of the house, 8 feet off the ground. Years passed, and the masked visitor was never seen again. And it wasn't until Katie was 20, and her father had passed away, she found among his possessions an old, dusty, dead skin mask.